Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and today we're going to be continuing our character profile on the Limbus company, identities, and egos. We're going to be focusing on Sinclair today, so let's go ahead and dig in. So we're actually going to start with Sinclair's ego, and there's a reason for that. He only has two egos, the standard ego branch of knowledge, and then he has the impending day. Now, a lot of people might be wondering, why are we focusing on impending day? The reason for this is impending day is an incredibly powerful support ego, and you can get it for free in the battle pass. You don't have to have the paid battle pass. It is an ego that everybody is going to have access to. What makes it so powerful? It's activated with 3 wrath and 2 lust, which is very easy to achieve. And the ability impending day is a blunt type attack with a growth of 0.7, which is really good. Has a 28 skill power again, which is great. Plus 20% damage if the target's HP is below 25%, so it's going to be a finisher ability, right? On kill, gain 1 attack power up next turn, and more importantly, heal all allies for 15% of max HP. This is incredibly powerful, especially in a world where there aren't very many healing support abilities in the game right now. This is extremely powerful, and everybody is going to have access to this, so you are going to be able to utilize this heal. And considering that Sinclair is a reasonably powerful unit, you may want to make use of this. And he has so many different identities. He's the only unit in the game with 4 identities. You may be able to find room for him in your composition. Now, the corrosion version of this, indiscriminate, would be plus 25% damage. Again, pretty standard. Apply 10 bleed to self next turn, and then failed kill, gain 3 attack power up next turn. So pretty interesting on the corrosion side. The passive live offering, after defeating an enemy with an attack or counter skill, and this is so powerful as well, gain 5 ego resources of that skill's affinity. So not only is this an insane healing ego, this is going to be a very powerful just ego generating machine, particularly if you are able to land a kill quite reliably with this. Since we started with the egos, we might as well talk about his other ego. He only has 2. Branch of knowledge is the primary ego that everybody is going to have access to. 1 wrath, 3 gluttony. It's going to inflict 12 rupture on a heads hit, and it's going to apply 2 attack power down to self next turn. So this is a really interesting ego, and I didn't realize that this ego had negative attributes about it in terms of applying attack down to yourself. That's a little bit scary to me, knowing how much I spam this, because I do have a lot of gluttony in my composition. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to use this. But this may cause me to kind of not use this as much. The passive, called unstable, at the start of a combat phase, gain attack up by gluttony divided by 2. Next turn, self-apply that much attack power down, and the above effect doesn't activate. So there is a lot of kind of complication going into his ego and a lot of things to think about with the standard form. So just keep that in mind if you are running Sinclair. If you're running into specifically some issues with him, he may be because you're utilizing this ego and you're getting that attack power down. It is also important to note a lot of his forms are very defensive in nature, which we'll talk about. He has just a very defensive oriented identity. So let's talk about his different identities. So LCB Sinclair is his standard form, which you should all be familiar with. He comes with 3 pride, 2 gluttony, 1 envy, and always love when I see envy on here. His abilities have a growth of 0.76, which is great. inflict 2 rupture, which is okay. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of rupture in the world, but when you look at like his ego, which applies 11, that's a lot of rupture if you think about it. So I guess this is good, but I much prefer his other abilities. Halberd combo, which is going to give plus 30% damage when you win a clash, is huge. And Ravaging Cut is going to gain 1 attack power up if you do win a clash. So he's going to be very clash dependent for his abilities. His passives, when an ally is defeated, gain 1 attack power up. You never want allies to be defeated, so I'm always a little leery on passives like this, but I suppose 2 Pride is easy to pull off. His support ability, 1 ally with the lowest SP gains 1 attack power up the turn after an ally is defeated. Lots of conditions here. You're probably never going to pull this off unless you are specifically aiming for it. Taking a look at his stats, one thing to notice here, his speed range is 3 to 7. He is a slower unit, on all iterations of him are pretty slow. And then his defense is only 26 in this form, which is going to be a little bit different as we are looking at his other versions. Now, Zway Section 6 Sinclair, he does have 2 different versions of his 2-star form. He has Zway Section 6, and then he has Jefe de los Mariachis Sinclair. So we're going to be going over the Zway Section 6 first. This is the initial artwork, and then he has the secondary artwork, and you can tell by the weapon that he's wielding, he is going to be using blunt attacks, which is of course a bonus. One interesting thing here is that as we are looking at some of these Sinclairs, he is going to be unable to activate his own ego. So keep that in mind. I don't think that's too big of a deal because usually you're pairing units with other units and you can usually activate an ego, a specific way. But if you are specifically really wanting to activate Impending Day with that Wrath ×3 and Lust ×2, literally Section 6 Sinclair will only be able to apply the Wrath. Now, primary ability inflicts 2 Tremor. Zway Section 6 Sinclair is going to be a Tremor unit. So if you don't know how Tremor works, you have to apply Tremor on a unit and then apply more Tremor, and then you burst the Tremor to kind of do like burst damage. So the growth on his abilities is only 0.6. They are all blunt abilities. I like the secondary ability, which gives damage down as well, since he is leaning a little bit more defensive in this build, and as well as giving 6 Tremor is good. And then his final ability gives 1 protection to the ally with the lowest HP, which is good. On hit, burst 2 Tremor, and then on hit, inflict 2 blunt fragility. Now, blunt fragility is one of those things where, okay, it's good, it works, but I'm not like super hyped for it. Burst Tremor as well, burst 2 Tremor. Again, it's okay. I'm more hyped for the protection and the blunt striking attack itself. His passive is really good. At the start of combat phase, give 2 defense power up and 1 protection to allies adjacent to this unit on the dashboard, and it only takes Gloom ×2 to activate. So very powerful passive. The support ability, 1 ally with the lowest HP takes 10% damage less. Not that great. You may be pulling this off, but it's not going to be incredible. Now, when we're looking at the stats, this is where you're going to notice the big change here. His speed range is only 2 to 4, and his defense is 37. So he is going to be that defensive unit. He will be able to do some damage with the blunt capabilities, but at the end of the day, he is going to be leaning into that defensive side. Now, Mariachi Sinclair, you probably recognize this art more than this one. This is the one that kind of makes the rounds, I suppose. So Mariachi Sinclair is going to have 3 Sloth, 2 Envy, and 1 Gloom. Again, this is one of those situations where he is not going to be able to activate his ego. He doesn't even have Wrath for his big healing ego, so keep that in mind. He is going to be blunt as well, and he is going to be a tank as well. So he objectively, I think, is worse than the previous version, but I think it depends on what status ailments you really want. The reason I think that his growth rate is lower, which means his total attack power will be lower as well. I do like that he inflicts sinking. I think that's a really good ability, and I do like that he has access to Envy. But his final ability, if the target's SP is below 0, boosts crit chance proportional to target's SP. On a heads hit, raise user stagger threshold by 50% of damage dealt. I just don't see this being extremely powerful and making a huge difference in your team. I do like the sinking though. His passive, after a successful evade, lower stagger threshold by the evade skill power. His support ability, one ally with the highest SP deals 10% damage to enemies with lower SP. Oh, it's okay, you could probably pull it off. What's really going to be kind of his shining is the 40 defense that he has, and the 2 to 3 speed range. So if I had to choose one personally, I would choose the Zway Section 6 Sinclair, just because he has access to Wrath, which may make it easier for you to access your E.G.O, as well as this passive that's extremely powerful to give defensive up and protection to allies around you. He also has higher speed, higher growth. I think overall, unless you're really wanting that sinking or that SP, you'll probably want to lean into Zway Section shit. Oh, section 6 a little bit more. Finally, we do have Blade Lineage Zway Sinclair. This is the Sinclair I actually use. His final artwork here is drawing his blade. What's nice about him is that you are going to be able to activate his primary E.G.O, and you are, while lacking access to Lust, you are going to be able to access the Wrath ability here. Now, I personally struggle with Poise. I do use him as a unit in my primary build right now, but I do sometimes struggle when I look at Poise and I'm like, man, is Poise really doing anything for me? Like, I really have to think about it. He also has huge growth, so 0.74, which is great. He has 2 attack power up if he loses a clash, so I really enjoy that. And his final ability does inflict 5 paralysis and 3 bleed, which is also really good. It slides into that bleed meta that we do have right now. His passive, the last coin on the last skill in the chain deals pride damage. You require 3 pride. And then his support ability, one ally with the lowest speed gains +1 final power for their last skill. Now, I do try to have him set for the support ability all the time, because whenever you're able to get final power and you're able to kind of add that, it does make your team that much stronger. His speed is 2 to 5 and his defense is 33. Overall, I think this is going to be your best bet. You're probably going to want to lean into him, especially if you are able to get his E.G.O here. Just make sure you're pairing up with other units that have access to Lust. But overall, I think Sinclair is a great unit. I think he is very dependent on his E.G.O, particularly if you're wanting to go kind of long term. I don't have his E.G.O yet. I don't have Impending Day yet, and I still use him and he's still reasonably okay. But I can see things completely changing when I do get this E.G.O, and I can see my team becoming that much more powerful. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I am trying to become a Limbus company content creator, so please share these videos out. I'm constantly learning. If I missed something, this game's so goddamn complicated. Let me know in the comments and I'll pin it. And I will catch you guys next time.